Good morning and welcome to Mental Health Matters Office Hours with me, Dr Audrey Tang. My co-host is Judith Crosier, and this is the show where we unpack all of those workplace well-being issues. Today we have Dr Hayley Lewis joining us. She is very, very well known in the occupational psychology arena, and something that she does is she creates artwork in order to explain some complex psychological constructs. And so I'm very excited to be talking to her later today. We'll be covering things like boundary setting. We'll be covering some of those issues that we face about exhaustion in the workplace and how we can give everything we want to give professionally without giving too much personally. So let's head over to the main studio. Dr Hayley Lewis, it is a thrill to have you on Mental Health Matters Office Hours. Hayley is one of the most prolific academic influencers, and in particular her artwork is absolutely outstanding, and she's able to really explain quite deep psychological concepts in such, I don't want to say a simple way, but a memorable way, which really allows you to kind of sit with the key messages and the insights. So Hayley, it's just such a pleasure and a privilege to have you on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. It does always make me chuckle when I get referred to as an academic, because I definitely don't see myself that way. I'm putting together a presentation for some students next week, and I talk about the fact that I failed my master's dissertation the first time, mainly to give them hope. Like, if I can make it, they can make it. But yeah, it always makes me laugh.
Oh, I rewrote my PhD twice, so you know.
Oh, wow.
yeah, I got there in the end. But
I think these are great stories for people as well. It gives people hope.
Exactly. And it talks about perseverance, it talks about grit and things like having to have resilience and strength to just keep pushing through, you know, if you really want it. So
exactly.
I think
it's great to hear that.
Yeah. Role modelling again.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, Hayley, please tell us a little bit more. I know you just started talking to us about you teach students, you also are the founder of Halo Psychology. Please tell us a bit more about the work that you do.
Yeah, so my day-to-day work outside of my part-time role in academia. So with Halo Psychology, the kind of broad umbrella is leadership and management development, particularly managers. I'm passionate about getting my hands on middle managers, because we know that they can make life very easy or very difficult for themselves and others. So a lot of my work is one-to-one coaching. And then on top of that, I design and deliver everything from development programs through to kind of one-off masterclasses. And I do a lot of talks and kind of keynote speeches around anything within the realms of leadership and management behaviour.
Fantastic. And obviously your art is a key feature of your coaching. How do you find that the art plays into teaching complex concepts?
Well, do you know what? More than anything, and it's a bit of a selfish thing, if I'm honest, it helps anchor my understanding.
Okay.
Because I don't believe in talking about stuff with others if I haven't got enough understanding, and we know that's a big issue on social media, isn't it? We're seeing people share information and talk about stuff they should not be going anywhere near. And I take my profession really seriously, you know, as a registered psychologist. I have ethics to abide by, and so one of those is I've really got to understand what I'm talking about, or I don't go there. And so the drawing is so immersive for me, and it really helps anchor my understanding. And then the bonus is I get to share it with others, and it starts to help them as well.
Yeah, definitely. Because I know Leanne Elliott, who we've had on the show as well, she always saves your artwork. I love your artwork. I think it's just fantastic, because I look at it sometimes and go, oh, she's brought something out that I never even realised about that concept, and it's absolutely fantastic. I love your description on your website that you are like a cross between a high beam torch, a guardian angel, and a mountain guide. How do each of those qualities help you with transforming organisations?
So I think and these are things that other people have referred to me as. So yeah, I'm not sat there calling myself these. That would be weird, wouldn't it? This is feedback I've had with other people over the years, whether it's staff who've reported into me when I was in management roles or clients. So the high beam torch, I've got a reputation, and it's something that I pride myself on zeroing in like a laser on what really matters. I've got a good BS detector. And I'm really good at kind of, often there's lots of white noise around change and kind of issues in organisations, and I'm quite good at kind of siphoning that away and getting to what's really going on. I think the guardian angel, a few people have said to me, they feel like I'm by their side even when I'm not there. And that's where things like the sketch notes can come in outside of coaching. And obviously with coaching, my aim is to help people be self-sufficient and kind of boost their confidence. And the mountain guide, you know, I've got a lot of battle scars from my time in the public sector as a manager and leader. And so my experience of leading and implementing all sorts of change, everything from big kind of systemic and culture change through to restructures at a local level with my team, it's given me a really good sense of the paths to take and the dangers and drops to avoid.
And this is another reason why we are so thrilled to have Hayley on our show, because we, very much like you with your reputation, we pride ourselves in having practitioners who really know their stuff, and we are so lucky to have thought leaders who have got the experience, whether in the field or through academia, and often both, to impart their knowledge, and they really do know what they're talking about. So we're so grateful.
And that really shines through when you're talking as well, that you've got, you know, shed loads of experience behind you, and you talk from a place of knowledge and experience. And so you don't only just work with organisations, you work with and train facilitators as well. Not everyone can be a trainer. Especially not at executive level. So how do you finesse those who are going to be successful in the corporate training world?
Yeah, so whether it's the postgrad students I work with on the doctorate programme that I lead, or whether it's internal consultants in an organisation, it starts with self-awareness. So you have to know kind of what you're bringing to the table as a facilitator, but also where your learning needs are. So I'll share my own example, and it's something that I bring in when I'm teaching for people to be good facilitators and kind of trainers. I went on, this is when I worked at the BBC, and I was pretty young early on in my career, so I'd only been working in the field 5 years, and I went on an advanced programme, and there were 6 other people. It was a very small programme. They were all like chief execs and managing directors, and there was little old me as a 28-year-old, and we had to do a 360-degree feedback before, which was purely geared around facilitation and learning skills, so it's kind of teaching others. It was brutal. It was brutal, but really humbling, but taught me a lot. It taught me a lot about how to create a learning environment. It taught me that the emotions that can come into a room, whether it's a workshop, whether it's a course, are okay. They're all legitimate, and our job is to kind of focus on what's going on behind. Is it frustration that somebody's not getting a concept that you're trying to teach, and so therefore what do you need to do differently as a trainer or facilitator, and so that experience, my own experience, is something that then I try and impart when I'm teaching, whether it's OD consultants or, as I say, our psychology trainees who are going on the next step of their journey. Is it starts with you. And the final thing I'll say around one of the main things that I bring in when I'm teaching people to be effective facilitators and trainers is a concept called the self as an instrument, which one or both of you might be familiar with. It's from somebody who was my mentor, my first mentor when I started out, the the late and very much missed Dr Mian Chung Judge, who was so important at the start of my career. Well, she's still important to me now, long after she's gone. But she wrote a brilliant paper called Self as an Instrument, and I refer to it often. I've shared it with so many students over the last 20 years. I've shared it with so many HR and OD and L&D practitioners over the years, and every single one has said they found it a profound piece, and it's got them thinking about themselves and how they impact a learning space.
Wow.
So I'm conscious that was quite a long answer.
That's a great answer.
Yeah.
But yeah.
That was beautiful, and it needs that time, and I hope people are inspired to go and read that. And we are keeping you with us, Hayley, because we are going to now sort of start picking your brains and some of those workplace issues that we all face. So stay with us, and we'll be back just after this.
Navigating today's workplace is tough.
Toxic employees, endless drama, a lack of motivation. We've all been there.
But fear not, we are here to help. My name is Leanne and I'm a chartered psychologist.
My name is Al and I'm a business owner, and together we dig into the scientific and commercial secrets behind great workplace cultures in Truth, Lies and Work.
A no-nonsense award-winning psychology podcast brought to you by the HubSpot Podcast Network. We explore practical strategies for building a great workplace.
We debunk buzzwords and bring you the very best advice around finding and keeping great people, from personality tests.
Personality tests they're mostly bollocks. I don't know what kind of language you do on your podcast. I don't know if people know this, but the man who wrote the Wonder Woman comics is the person who invented the disc.
When more flexible working became a norm, you no longer hurt your career prospects by being the one person who worked flexibly.
All the way to avoiding high turnover.
We recruit and promote people to managerial roles based on their technical skills, not their people skills. This is a very fundamental problem we have, which we haven't directly tackled.
From toxic-free cultures,
Interventions for the individual are only half the answer. Systemic change is the other half.
to sustainable growth.
Thinking beyond just paying somebody a good salary, I think is super necessary now. We have to offer so much more than that.
We have got you covered.
So join us on Tuesdays and Thursdays, where we help you to simplify the science of work and build amazing workplace cultures.
Hello, join me, Stacey Bullock, host of Tools for Everyday Living on E360's Positive Vibrations channel every Friday at 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on E360 TV.
Welcome back to Mental Health Matters Office Hours. We've got Dr Hayley Lewis with us, and we're going to move on to the subject of boundary setting, because this is one of the areas that I know comes out through your consultancy work and through your training, and there's so much to talk about. But let's start with us. We have been already talking about self-awareness. Why do you think we struggle personally with setting boundaries?
I think it can be different for different people. You know, the three of us are women. We know my friend and colleague, who you might be familiar with, Audrey, Michelle Minikin. She's also she's a business psychologist. She wrote a brilliant book called Good Girl Deprogramming. And it talks about the impact of the societal and cultural impact on girls from a very young age about don't say no, be good, be kind, help people all the time. And then we take that into our, you know, we take that into our teenage years, we take that into our adult years. And so is it any wonder, you know, I take my own practice. Most of the people pleasers who struggle with boundaries tend to be women more than men. I do get the odd man now and again, but so I think there's a societal thing. I think when you start to lay on intersectional aspects, for some people there might be a cultural and ethnic, you know, norms that start to feed in about why it's unacceptable. Particularly, there might be a power thing. So if I'm from a certain cultural or ethnic background, it's unacceptable for me to say no or push back at somebody who's older than me, an elder. And so, and then in a capitalist society, because I'm fascinated by capitalism, and it's something I explored in my own doctoral research in female entrepreneurship. You know, again, in capitalist countries, it's kind of ground into us, that work ethic, and you work hard, and part of working hard and progressing and kind of working your way up is you kind of do the grind. You know, I hate that term. And we still see it, we still hear it on social media.
Yes.
And part of that is saying yes to every opportunity. And so there's all sorts of things that come into play for us as humans, I think, which is why so many of us struggle with different types of boundaries.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think all of those different aspects, if one of them doesn't affect you, the other one will.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you can't win.
Exactly.
And there's a new one which I want to just bring up. It's the workplace going, we're family. We're like a family. We're like a family here. And therefore we do things for family. And I think that puts on another whole layer of demand because you don't say no to family. And so in many ways, I get it because that's a marketing ploy, and I kind of like the idea of perhaps we are a community, but how do you embrace a community and a supportive workplace environment, but also know when to stop?
Yeah. Well, I just want to pick up on one thing, because I feel like you, when I hear that phrase, we're a family. Well, first of all, that assumes that everyone comes from a healthy family and a family that families are a positive thing for them, because not everybody has that experience, quite frankly. And so actually that could be a trigger and could mean you run away from that company. I think I love the question, how do you embrace community and be supportive and it being a supportive workplace while still knowing when to stop? I think, right, first off, none of what I'm going to suggest in today's discussion is easy, because it requires courage and a preparedness to try stuff out. There's no quick fixes here. I think it's getting clear on what matters to you, what you are or aren't prepared to do, and then being explicit about that. Yes. Because the irony is when we give mixed messages, when we say yes to something, but then we are resentful and we behave in a resentful way, or we say yes to something to please our boss or to be supportive, but actually we don't end up doing it, or we end up doing it late because we've got too much else on. There's a different knock-on effect. So actually it can be a supportive, community-minded act in and of itself to give that clarity to others about what you will and won't and can and can't do.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah. So where are the common areas that boundaries tend to get pushed?
Yeah, so I think working out of hours, because obviously as an occupational psychologist, my focus is on work life. I shared a quote on LinkedIn and Instagram last week, though, it's from Sarah Rosenthaler's new book called Now We're Talking. There's a lot of us about. She's another occupational psychologist, and she says, what's going on at work can impact at home, and what's going on at home can impact at work. This idea that we're separate identities is a nonsense. Working out of hours impacts our kind of personal lives, our time with family, if we live with family. Email and social media, so always being on.
That's huge.
Power. So there was a really interesting study that came out last year, which I wrote about if managers and favourites. So if you've got a really good relationship with your line manager, like you get on really well, actually that can end up working against you. Not in an evil Machiavellian way from the manager. It just happens by dint of that relationship, and so that manager will come to you because they trust you, because you've got that good relationship, and so you end up doing more and more.
That makes sense, doesn't it?
Emotional issues, so you might be the go-to for your friendship group or your colleagues who offload. on you. And role boundaries. This is a big one at the moment for quite a few organisations that I'm working with, where roles have become really unclear. And so people are kind of bumping into each other, duplicating effort.
Yes.
You know, a lot of my work is with the public sector because I'm passionate about it in the UK. And we're at a time where money's even tighter, resources are even tighter. So you can't afford to be having people duplicating effort. So boundaries around roles as well. So you can see there's all sorts of boundary issues that can come up for us.
Especially that last one can lead to a lot of resentment as well.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So many of us understand that sometimes our own factors and backgrounds can make it harder to set boundaries. But what about in the workplace, in situations where we're going and above because the team needs it, but the team always seems to need it, so we're always going over and above?
So my first question is, do they?
Yeah, exactly. It's true. Have we
taught
them that we'll do it for them?
Or is that a truth you're telling yourself, particularly if you're the leader of the team? It's funny actually. I've got a client that I'm working with at the moment in executive coaching, and we're working on exactly this.
Okay.
And I'm sure both of you will have heard other people say this, or maybe you've done it yourself. I know I've done it myself, where you're like, oh, it's easier for me to do it.
Oh, yeah, all the time.
Of course, yeah.
And so a vicious circle gets set, doesn't it? A precedent gets set. And who do you think is going to break it? Because your team isn't, potentially. And so it's down to you. If you've set the tone as the leader because of what you're role modelling, it's down to you to do something different. So my rather cheeky question back is, do they?
I think that's
quite often
brilliant.
Not, yes, exactly.
And I think we do, as leaders, need to ask that question because then it challenges what we're telling ourselves and the narratives we have been playing out. And if that one can be challenged, what else are we telling ourselves that we perhaps need to revisit? So lots to think about with Keeping Hayley, and we'll be back just after this.
Our passion for coffee goes way beyond the cup. We believe in a fair production chain in which each coffee farmer plays an essential role. We are proud to support our communities and promote environmental sustainability. Bedford Coffee Roasters guarantees an exceptional experience for producers and consumers. Join us on our journey to extraordinary coffee, where quality, sustainability and fairness come together to create an experience unlike any other. Ground with passion, served with pride. Bedford Coffee Roasters, coffee worth drinking.
Welcome back to Mental Health Matters Office Hours. We've got Dr Hayley Lewis with us, and we've been talking about boundary setting. Now, there are many reasons why we don't set boundaries. Hayley has unpacked quite a number of those, and there are so many intersecting reasons as well on top of that, and the workplace doesn't necessarily make it easier for us. So, Hayley, I know this is sort of like a $50 million question. How do you teach boundary setting? What are your top 3 tips?
So I don't teach because I think it's a personal journey that people need to. I can't believe I used the word journey. It had to come up at least once.
Of course it does.
So much as coach or suggest. So my 3 suggestions born out of things that clients have found have worked for them. Many of my clients have found work for them, and things that I've experimented with as well. So first up is label your boundaries non-negotiable or open to compromise, because I think one of the traps we can end up in is we set hard and fast rules, which can become stressful in and of themselves. So if I know there's a boundary where I'm like, that's not for shifting, but actually there's a boundary where I can shift if I need it, that allows us more breathing space. So for example, I had a very hard boundary about not working on a Friday, and that was because when I was looking after my mum when she was dying, I'd take her to the hospital, and after she died, I kept that in. In recent times, because I've got so much on, working and at home, and I've got multiple roles, work roles, actually every now and again I'll put something in on a Friday, and I'm okay with that because that's a choice. So I've turned that into an open to compromise boundary, and that feels much better for me. Number 2 is get clear on what your priorities are. It's really hard to set your boundaries if you're not clear, first of all, what matters, what's urgent, what's important. One of the things I always suggest to people using is do a bit of a brainstorm using something like the Eisenhower matrix. So the urgent, important, not important quadrants. And then the third is be clear in your communication. Be short, succinct and clear in what your boundary is. Because Caroline Webb talks about this in her book, How to Have a Good Day. Clarity is calming for the human brain.
It is. Yeah,
when things are ambiguous or open to interpretation, it can be really stressful for us. So being clear with people, they might not like the message, but weirdly it gives them certainty. So be clear. I don't know if I'm a big fan of Sarah Millican, the comedian. I adore her. And in one of her shows, she says no is a complete word.
Yes,
No.
I've heard her say that.
And I bought her necklace. She had a necklace in conjunction with Tattoo Divine, the jewellery company, and it just says no.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'll wear it when I need that reminder.
I love that.
Yeah.
I absolutely love that. I'm going to throw one more kind of devil's advocate question into the mix, because boundary setting can differ for different people, as we know, because it depends on your agenda. There'll be some people who are absolutely going for that promotion, and in order to do it, they are going to work over and above not only what's expected, but past their own boundaries. Exactly. So how do we manage ourselves, I think, when we see something like that? Or I guess if we're bitten by that, I must do even more to prove myself. I think that probably is a step into therapy there. But
Yes. Yeah, I mean, comparison is I think continues to be one of the biggest issues in much of the work I do, and I know that it shows up in all sorts of ways. I think in the last 2 years, I've become really interested in and been learning about acceptance and commitment therapy, or acceptance and commitment coaching. And I think there's something around it. If you're looking at a colleague who has chosen, because there's something about choice as well, and agency, if they have chosen to put in extra hours because they think it will help them with their promotion, but you don't want to do that, there's something about accepting the consequences of your choice, just as they should accept the consequences of their choice. My husband said I should write a book called You Can't Have Your Cake and Eat It, because it's such a common thing for me to challenge coaching clients on, is they want all the things but they don't want to make any sacrifices, or they want to put that boundary in but they want all the things. And life's just not like that. Life is grey and messy, and sometimes it requires compromise, sometimes it requires us to stand firm. And there's something around accepting our choice and accepting the ups and downs of that choice as well.
Yeah, I love that. And knowing that actually that can change over time as well. And in fact, that's quite a positive too. You know, I've accepted this, but this in a year's time could be very different. It's okay. Life is dynamic that way. I think that's a privilege of life. I like that a lot.
Yeah, it sounds simple but very effective. Yeah, definitely. So how do you manage the difficult conversations, or potentially difficult conversations, around etiquette? So, for example, a lot of work now is done on WhatsApp, but I know that when I've been part of a WhatsApp group for work, not here, by the way.
I was just speaking about me.
No, I'm not. I'm really not.
Messaging at midnight.
Nope, I'm not. I'm really not. No, it's previous jobs. You know which ones. I'm not talking about it. It's intrusive, you know, or it can be intrusive. So how do you manage that situation?
Again, I think there's giving the clarity, and then sticking to it if it's not an open to compromise one, because you end up giving mixed messages. So wording that I've suggested to clients in similar situations where we've kind of crafted a message together is something along the lines of, I find this group really helpful for solving problems when I'm working from home. So when I'm isolated working from home, but during the weekends and evenings, I'm going to switch off the notifications and ignore the app so I can spend time with my family, and I'll pick up the thread when I'm back in work mode.
Love it.
Yeah.
So you're kind of setting that. Key then is to not then keep going into WhatsApp and answering messages, because you kind of then undermine yourself. You're kind of giving mixed messages, which comes back to my point around, is it open to compromise or is it a fixed boundary? One of the things that I do, because I can get a bit addicted to not so much WhatsApp, I've turned off all my notifications on WhatsApp, is social media. So I delete all the apps at night.
Oh, great idea.
Because otherwise I will just be scrolling and comparing myself against others. And so for me to kind of really be present with my husband, but also get a good night's sleep, I've learned that I need that actual physical boundary. I've got to get them off my phone, and then I'll put them back in later on the next day.
I did exactly that to train myself not to scroll mindlessly. I used an app blocker, so it just meant I couldn't go on. It was
such a good idea.
Absolutely, but free, absolutely free of charge. You could set your times when you can access the app. It's not saying that you can't access the app, but it will tell you. I think I've mentioned this before. It's a passive-aggressive app blocker, so it will say it will tell me, you've tried to open this app 39 times today. Get on with your own work, and I'm like, what?
It's when it starts using your name. What are you doing, Audrey?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. But it's trained me not to use them at night. So
such a good idea.
It's really good. And then when you see the times mount up, because it does keep track of the times you tried to open it, you begin to realise how mindlessly you might just click on Instagram just because it's there.
Yes, exactly. And how much time you're actually wasting.
Yeah, totally.
Gosh, that's a really, really good idea. So what about when you see someone else not setting boundaries for themselves and others taking advantage of that? Is it ever right to intervene?
This is an interesting one. I mean, this spoke to one of the things that I have been working on my whole life and continue to work on. Because I like to be helpful, but it means that I can give unsolicited advice. Not when I'm in coach mode, but certainly outside of my professional life. I think who says they're not setting boundaries and who says they're struggling with it, because we're seeing it through our lived experience and worldview, which could be different from theirs. So we're making assumptions based on how we feel. And so I think check in on that. I would ask how they're feeling.
I like that. Yes, that's really nice.
Because you're right, it's easy to make assumptions.
Right? If they turn around and say, no, I'm fine. And then just check again. Oh, don't do it like that. But just you get a sense if someone's genuinely fine. And if they're like, well, actually, feeling a bit stressed or overwhelmed, you can offer.
Yes.
Would you like some advice?
Yeah, that's true.
I've got some experience of that, because then you're giving them the choice.
Yes.
And agency.
Yeah. No, that's so true, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Because we can make assumptions based on our own experiences, can't we? And they might be perfectly happy.
Yeah. And that's something, I guess, again, it's a little bit like looking at our own boundaries as well, and why we feel compelled to do that.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Exactly right.
We could speak with you all day, Dr. Hayley. Seriously, this has just been
I could talk all day, as you've probably picked up. So
well, do you know what? We'd love to have you back on the show. Yeah. So there's so many topics we can unpack with you. Where can we find you? Where can we learn more about you?
So when I don't take the apps off my phone, you can find me on LinkedIn and Instagram. They're the two platforms I'm on most. You can put my links in the show notes. And then there's my website, www.halopsychology.com, and there's all sorts of helpful articles and free downloads for people to help with your working lives.
Amazing.
Brilliant.
Thank you so much, Dr. Hayley. It's been such a pleasure, and we will see you again on the show soon. We'll head over to Business Boost. Let's talk boundary setting phrases. There are some very simple phrases that you can use and learn, and if this is the thing that you take away, then maybe practice these phrases. They're not there to be mean to anyone. They're not there to say no all the time, but they are there to give you a little bit of thinking time to make your decision as to whether you can do something or not. The first phrase is to ask somebody, well, how can I help you? How best can I help you? What would you like me to do? Anything around that passes the power back to the person asking you for help. And also, if they explain to you, oh, actually, I'd like you to do this, that, and the other, then whatever help you're able to give is more likely to be targeted, rather than somebody asks you for help and then you make the assumption that what you're going to do is what they need. So ask them, how can I best help you? The second phrase I'd like you to think about is to manage your time. I'd love to help, but I can only give you 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes. Or I'd love to help, but I can only do it between this time and that time. That way you have made a boundary around your time and how much you're willing or able to give. One of my all-time favorite phrases is to say, especially when you're invited to something, I'll let you know later, I don't have my diary. No one knows whether you got your diary or not. So that gives you time to think about whether you actually want to do something, or it kind of buys you time to think of an excuse not to. One of the most important things to remember is try not to agree to something just when you're in a good mood. Because when we're in a good mood, we think, yeah, brilliant, that's fantastic. And then when it actually comes around to the event or whatever it is, if you haven't really thought about it, you might get to the date and think, really don't want to do that. And the last thing is, if you actually can't help, but you know someone who can, signpost people. That way you're still contributing, but you're able to do it and maybe give someone else work as well. And that will be, well, I'm sorry, I can't help you, but someone else so-and-so can. You are still referring them onwards. But you're not having to go and do whatever it is for that person. Remember, if you do it for people, all it teaches them is that A, if they ask you, you'll do it, or B, the fact that you're doing it and not asking them to do it means you probably do it better than them, and that's not empowering either. Well, we've reached the last part of Mental Health Matters. Always one of the fun parts because we get to reflect, and there is so much to reflect on.
Yeah, absolutely loads. Hayley was so amazing.
Yeah.
She was so amazing, and everything she was saying, and quite a lot resonated as well.
I mean, for me, it was when she was saying, well, is that the truth of what's happening out there, or is it the narrative you're telling yourself?
Yeah, exactly.
And I think we can tell ourselves narratives about, oh, my team needs me to do this, or I have to do that.
Yeah.
And for some reason, it makes us comfortable, all of those things. And then we've done it for so long, we've forgotten what's actually true, or even to check back.
Yeah, exactly.
Because actually just reflecting on that, sometimes if you have someone who's new at something, maybe they do need you. Maybe they do need you to hold their hand for the first month. But then 10 months go by and it's kind of, they don't need you anymore, not really, or shouldn't.
Or shouldn't after 10 months, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. So does that mean then it's us that wants to be needed,
Yes.
maybe still, or to be in control, or both? And I know that I have real trouble passing things on to people. Okay, here you go. Because I know that I can do it, you know, quickly and thoroughly, etc., whatever it might be.
But I think it's one of those things where if you are passing something on to somebody because it's their job, there's a difference between that and passing something on to somebody to improve their skills.
You're right. And in my scenario, in my other jobs, which I definitely was talking about in the WhatsApp show, I really wasn't.
I do WhatsApp her at like midnight. Though,
Yeah,
so.
I mean, she does, yes. But I also know I'll read that tomorrow and it's fine. My other jobs, they were very demanding. you just got the sense of this needs to be read now.
Yeah, and if you don't read it now,
I better do it.
But they'll WhatsApp again.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
Yeah.
Because we do have an understanding. I even say at the start of WhatsApps, I may well WhatsApp at midnight because that's when I'm working.
Yeah.
Please do not answer. Do not reply to it. And this is actually something that Dr. Laura Gierger and Dr. Lauren Howe are studying in they're working on this with the University of Zurich and LSE. They talk about emails and WhatsApps, and they say, we make such a fuss when something's urgent.
Mm-hmm.
So, do it now, underlined in red, all of that. Why don't we make the same fuss when it's not urgent?
Yeah.
I'm letting you know, this is for info only.
Yeah.
Please don't feel you have to reply.
Yeah, and you're really good at that.
Because I think it's important.
Yeah, you're really good at saying that. And also at the bottom of every single email, you say, my working hours may not be the same as yours. Yeah. Don't feel pressured to respond. And that's really brilliant to read that. And I've noticed that other people do that now. I've noticed more and more people do that.
I think it's important.
And it's great.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, if you're a leader, if you're whether it's a team leader or organisational leader, you will care more about that organisation than everybody else has to care about it. You have to. You're
paid to care more.
Yeah,
and that's true.
You can't demand the same of other people.
No, it is a real tricky one. But when Hayley was talking about the public sector, I had to smile a bit because obviously I know that really, really well. And what you've just said about passing things to people to boost their skill, that's a scenario I've been in a lot of time. Other people wanted my tasks. They're my tasks, and that's what I'm paid to do.
Yeah.
They weren't paid to do them.
Yes.
But they demanded them anyway, and that's what I had a real kind of problem with.
And they may not do them right.
Well, exactly, but it's like, well,
but it is your job.
Yeah, exactly. So it comes back to that. So that kind of feeds into it all as well.
So I think that does come back to Hayley's very key point, which is know what your boundaries are.
Yeah.
Know what's negotiable. Know what's non-negotiable.
Yes.
But that means taking a good hard look at yourselves as well and ourselves, and it's something that we can all do with a reminder of.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, and the clarity, which she said about the clarity as well, like be very, very clear and communicate those boundaries very clearly, and that is important, because if you say, I'm definitely not going to read a WhatsApp over the week, and then you read a WhatsApp and they can see that you've read it, well, what is that message?
And what's that message to yourself as well?
Yes.
Woo! So much to cover, and we look forward to having Hayley back to have another discussion like this. It's so fascinating. Thank you for tuning in. From Judith and myself, have a healthy week.